Dr. Alaa MURABIT, you are founder of the Voice of Libyan Women organization. Welcome to Congress Mediabox. On the occasion of the Congress 30th session, you just participated in debates on rising to the challenge of creating intercultural societies at local level. First of all, I would like to start with the organization. What is the aim and the activities of your organization?
Well, the Voice of Libyan Women is a young women-led organization which focuses on women's inclusion in peace processes and conflict resolution. So it really talks about creating societal change, and it really addresses the root causes of violence and radicalization in Libya and abroad.
And on the occasion of the Congress debate, when you were discussing the intercultural, to create an intercultural society at local level, what would you like to say about that? On the one side, we are talking interculturalism, and on the other side, Europe is fighting with radicalization. So it's a bit kind of dilemma. So what do you think about the role of the local authorities to tackle with this issue?
Well, I think that's the problem in the way we frame the question. So on one hand, it's radicalization. On the other hand, it's interculturalism. What says that those two things are related in any way? It's the way we've framed European identity. We've excluded a large portion of the population, and what we know is that radicalization breeds when people feel as though their opportunities are limited and as though they don't belong. And so by saying, by the way, unless you are European in the way we deem you're European, then you're different. And that is what breeds radicalization. So I think really at the local level, it's about creating inclusive societies where everybody feels as though they belong, everybody feels as though they are European, and everybody can benefit from the society. There have to be equal economic and social and political opportunities.
Especially in the current situation when we are talking to integrate the refugees. Maybe it's time to talk about and discuss these questions as well.
I actually think Europe's challenge is much older than that. I mean, if we look at what's happening now in Europe, a lot of the people who are involved in radicalization were born and raised in Europe. They're second, third generation Europeans. So I think there's a lot of false media coverage on refugees and saying that refugees are somehow at fault, when really the issues of interculturalism in Europe are decades, centuries old.
So maybe we can say that it's a question of perception of the society when they called we and others.
Exactly.
Others, they don't mind if they're refugees or someone different.
Exactly. I think that I know I myself am a child of immigrants, and in Canada I was never spoken to as though I was the other. I was always a Canadian, and I think that from a lot of the second and third and fourth generation intercultural people we speak to here in Europe, that's definitely not a feeling they get. There's a clear distinction about who is European and who isn't, and that's a huge problem.
And in the framework of the Congress, we know that, for example, there's a strategy on fighting against radicalization, and these kind of reports and strategies under the Congress policies. So do you think that they could be efficient to fight with these kind of problems, or what should have done more to influence or to
I think starting is great. I think the fact that the Congress has now decided to start is a wonderful, wonderful step. I think implementation is beyond the most important thing. Everybody has a lot of documents, but it's very important to actually create the resources and the intention and the political will and the public will to really implement a lot of these. And they're going to be difficult to do. I mean, when you're talking about radicalization, when you're talking about integration, when you're talking about all these things, they bring to mind people's identities. And that's a social thing. That's a phenomenon that will take generations to change, is recognizing that nobody is better than the other because of, race or religion or ethnicity and any of those other qualifying factors. And so I think the huge challenge will be implementing it and making it palatable to locals.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Alaa MURABIT.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.